In this video, I will be explaining a very interesting phenomenon of light, which is dispersion of light. So, to understand this phenomena, I will be demonstrating an activity, and we will be observing the result of this demonstration, which will actually help us to understand what is actually dispersion phenomenon. So, to perform this activity, I will be requiring few materials. These are the materials required. We will be using a glass prism, then a wooden board over which this glass prism will be kept. Okay, and we'll be using a white sheet, and then a white light source. In this case, we're using a torchlight. Okay, so these are the materials required. Okay, so here you can see that I have kept a triangular glass prism over a white sheet of paper, and I will be allowing a white ray of light to fall on one of the faces of this prism. Okay, now since I have turned off the light, so the prism is not visible, but the white light falling on the prism can be clearly seen, and we can observe that the white light deviates from its own path and emerges from the other face. Okay, now for instance, if I remove the prism, we can see that the ray again moves in its own straight line path. But as soon as I place the prism in its path, the ray again deviates and follows the deviated route. Okay. But the question is why this is so? Why this ray has deviated from its own path? So here from this diagram we will understand that why that ray of white light it has deviated from its original path. You see that this is the incident ray, the incident beam. So originally this incident beam was moving in its own straight line path. This is the undeviated part, okay. But once we have placed this prism ABC, then what happens that this ray it enters inside into this prism. So when it enters into this prism, so it is actually moving from optically rarer to optically denser medium, because the material used in this prism is glass, which is optically denser. And since it has entered an optically denser medium, so this ray, this one is called the refracted ray. This ray which you see, this line, this is the refracted ray, and it has bended towards the normal. So this is the normal NN dash. Okay, normal at this point E. This is the point of incidence, and this NN dash. This is the normal for this face AB. Okay, so this ray has bent towards the normal, and then this ray follows this path and incidence over this face AC. You can see here, it incidence here. And when it incidence at this point over this face AC, it emerges out. So this is the emergent beam. And when it emerges out, so that means he's making this ray is making a transition from optically denser, that means glass medium, to optically rarer. That is why this ray is deviating away or moving away from this normal. Now in this case our normal is mm dash. Mm dash is the normal for this face AC. So since he is moving from optically denser to optically rarer, he is moving away from the normal and finally emerges out. So that is why originally this ray which was moving in this straight line path, it has deviated from this to this refracted ray, and then finally is emerging from this other face. So that is why this ray of white light was deviated from its original path. So you will see, various terminologies. You can see I here. This I is the angle of incidence. R is the angle of refraction. And you see, if you see this portion, this is the angle of deviation. That means this is the angle through which this incident ray has deviated. Originally, he was moving in this direction. Now he is moving in this direction. So through what angle he has deviated? So he has deviated through this angle, which is angle of deviation represented by capital D. Okay. Now, when I place a screen along the emergent ray, we can observe this beautiful image. This is the Vibgyor spectrum, the 7 components of white light. So when white light is allowed to pass through this prism, it splits into 7 different colors, 7 different components. Okay. Now this can be observed on the emergent ray region. So this splitting of white light, when it is passed through the prism, so this splitting is known as dispersion of light. Okay, so now to understand this dispersion phenomena more clearly, I have shared a link in the description section where I have explained this dispersion phenomena theoretically. So you all can watch this video. Okay, thank you.